disgusting, vile grooming gang rape ongoing nightmare, and there is one woman who stuck her head above the parapet, police whistleblower Maggie Oliver. It's the first time we've met, isn't it? I thought we'd met in a nightclub somewhere. You're right.
I wouldn't remember even if I did.
No, I know that. Mate, you know, listen, people say to me, you always wax lyrical about this lady, and I'll tell you why. I think it's the biggest stain on our society. I can't believe that this is... I've told you before, I remember speaking some years ago to a senior ranking police officer from that area who said to me, we've had to tread carefully over the 8 years because we don't really want to upset certain parts of the community. For me, I don't know about you, but no matter about the colour of his skin, if you think it's okay to abuse an 8-year-old girl, then you don't deserve to be in my society.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we get on. But what I'm talking about today is slightly different, although it is part of that as well. And I'd just like to set the scene a little bit, because I joined the police, Greater Manchester Police, when I was 42. You know?
Did you?
Yeah. I was getting on a bit even then. I'd been back to university, but I was a mum of 4. Yeah. You know, I believed in child protection, and I was very much a square peg in a round hole when I joined. And I went to Moss Side, I was posted to Moss Side, and it was a baptism of fire. But because I was a woman, you know, middle class, middle-aged, do-gooder, I used to get all the people jobs, including children who were missing from home. And right back then, which was 1997, I was horrified that children in care were being treated as though they were trouble, as though they didn't matter. And this was the police and social services and people in the care homes. So I then went on the grooming gang cases in 2004 and 5 and Rochdale, and I saw them close down because there was a fear of racial unrest. The kids didn't matter. But I've always believed that child protection is the most important thing that we as a country can do. So roll forward, I resigned, as you know, in 2012. I went public, and I'm known for grooming gangs. But in 2015, the government then, which was Conservative, said, we are going to do a once-in-a-generation national inquiry into child protection and safeguarding, and we are going to change this landscape forever. There was a 7-year, £200 million national inquiry. 7,000 victims and survivors gave evidence. 20 recommendations were made. I was a core participant in the grooming gang organised network strand, which was a total whitewash. But there were other strands looking at abuse in the Catholic Church, abuse in the Church of England, Lord Janner, Cyril Smith, all of those things. And at the end of it, we got 20 recommendations. Now, to date, 3.5 years on, none of those recommendations have been implemented. They are sitting on a shelf, and included in those, Jeremy, is they won't prohibit pain compliance, torture of children in care. They won't regulate staff in care homes. There's still no mandatory recording of ethnicity and culture and religion of abusers. And so this is very much a David and Goliath situation. You know, my little charity, we've had to get funding from 2 individuals to take the government to a judicial review to try and shame them into implementing these recommendations.
Let's just slow this down a minute. I mean, today the Maggie Oliver Foundation, which you set up, and I have no shame in saying this, anybody listening, go online. The Maggie Oliver Foundation is the most worthwhile thing to support, and I mean that. You know, you are taking the British government to court on failure to act on child sexual abuse and exploitation recommendations that 3.5 years ago, 20 of them. Now, this isn't just at Starmer. No. This is governments going back. The thing I always want to ask you is, and the thing that chills me as a father of 6, and I know you've got kids, is
I've got 4.
This presumably goes either so high or so deep, or is so, I don't know, that almost every part of the establishment has closed the door in your face. Why?
You know what? I don't know. This is deep state. It is, you know, we've got Iran. You know, they can find the money to go and bomb a strange country. But we've got children, you know, a child who lives in care, they don't get care. They're not loved. They don't have affection. They're, you know, and we're trying to argue that they should have equal rights to a child that lives in a home, because at the moment they don't.
And also think about think about what this government are doing with puberty blockers. That's all on kids from care homes.
Absolutely.
With no regard for where they've come from or what they've gone through.
There's all these issues, but we you know, obviously I'm known for grooming gangs, but I've got a fantastic team in the foundation.
Yeah.
We help any adult survivor of any kind of sexual abuse, and this action that we are trying to take is on behalf of every parent, every mother, every child in the country. But it's very relevant as well to this new grooming gang inquiry. I've now had 2 meetings.
I call them rape gang inquiries.
Rape gangs, and
it's the truth, isn't it?
It's the truth. But Anne Longfield, who is meant to be leading this, I've now had 2 meetings. We've took a group of over 26 survivors to meet her, and we're going into a new national inquiry. The question has to be asked, Jeremy, if we had a 7-year national inquiry where the recommendations are sitting on a shelf 10 years after it started, why are we going to put a whole new generation of victims through another 3 years of trauma, reliving their abuse, when those recommendations are not worth the paper that they are written on? So the only way to challenge a government, and they are throwing millions of pounds fighting against us.
I thought they didn't have any money.
Well, they do when it comes to this, and they're saying to us, we don't have any duty to implement
And can
these.
I actually jump in? Sorry, Max, because we'll ask you about the deep state in a minute. This government, not just making it all about Starmer because it's the past, but this government is all about human rights. What about the human rights of kids who are abused by people?
Well, they obviously don't care about the human rights of kids because they're hiding behind, you know, paperwork and
Is
delays.
it all technical? It's all technical.
It's not technical. There's no will there to do it.
What do you mean by deep state?
I think we get, I mean, this is me, I'm not a politician, and
You've got a right to an opinion.
I've got an opinion. I think we get a new government, but the people in grey suits who are in the Home Office, who are in the Foreign Office, they don't change. And so they are entrenched.
What are they scared of?
We've got a problem in our country when we come to grooming gangs. Nobody wants to uncover the reality that one particular section of the Pakistani Muslim community abuse children, and they don't share the same values about child protection as we do. And, you know, politics is wrapped up in this thing.
But that's a fact.
I believe that that's a fact. That's my opinion.
You can have that opinion and say that you believe that. That doesn't...
I do believe it, Jeremy. I've worked
Well, you've seen it.
I've seen it. It's been my life for 30 years. You know, unless we... In a way, unless I win this, unless my charity wins this, what's the last 30 years been for?
Nothing.
And it's the future generations of children, because I won't be here forever. Who's going to pick up where I leave off? I'm building an army, but the governments, successive governments, in my opinion, should hang their heads in shame.
Yeah, agree. What does a win look like, by the way? What does a win look like?
Tomorrow at the High Court, it's we are seeking leave to take the government to a full judicial review.
Yep.
A win is actually either having all these recommendations implemented, or transparency that the government actually don't want to, they don't have to, and then that begs the question, why are we going to have another national inquiry?
Can I ask you something that's probably quite contentious, but I too have an opinion. When we've got this situation going on, which you don't need to talk about Iran, and he's accused by Trump of not caring, and he doesn't send the boats, and the French beat us and all that, and yet last night he stood in Westminster Hall, the very hall that Queen Elizabeth laid in state, by the way, and hundreds of thousands of people walked past her, entertained a Muslim community, that's their right, and basically said how proud he was that he hadn't gone in and been part of this bombing because he cares about Muslims. Do you think that our Prime Minister, his thing here is that he plays to a certain part of the electorate? Do you think that's why the policeman said it to me? Do you think that's why Keir Starmer won't do anything about it, because he's terrified of losing that vote?
I do think that's a massive part of it, and I think he's playing to an audience that he needs. But child protection should go above political game playing.
Yeah, of course it should.
You know, he is one person, but remember, Jeremy, when I worked on the Rochdale case, he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, and I resigned primarily because 2 of the children that I was supporting, that I'd worked with for months and given them my word, one of them had been made pregnant at 13, and as Director of Public Prosecutions, together with the Chief Prosecutor, he signed off that rapist would not be charged with rape. Jeremy, we
based
had a
on
fetus.
what?
We had a fetus. We had DNA.
What, based on what? What did Starmer base that on?
You have to ask him. But how can you charge a man who got a child pregnant with conspiracy?
Let's just lay it out there, Mags. He let Jimmy Savile off the hook, didn't he? Let's just say what, you know.
It kind of goes beyond one individual.
Of course, but you know, if you're the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Prime Minister, you're up there, aren't you?
He is the top of the Crown Prosecution Service. Decisions on charging lie at his feet. So I have got an extra layer of
cynicism,
contempt, probably, for somebody who's able to do that and turn away from children like that. For me, has got no principles. Two
very quick questions, not my fault, not much time. Is this rape gown scandal the biggest stain on our society ever?
I think it's the biggest shame. Yeah, I do. I've seen it at first hand, and it destroys lives. The abuse destroys lives, but children and survivors recover. When the state lets them down, they do not recover.
Couldn't agree more. The Maggie Oliver Foundation tomorrow taking this government to the High Court. 30-year battle. You're amazing. You said 3.5 years ago that the recommendations, 20 of them, none have been implemented. No. That's what you're fighting for. What can we do? What can people do to help this?
Well, we've had to fund this through 2 private donors, you know, a little charity. So anybody who wants to support a charity, please donate.
I don't usually do this. Go online. The Maggie Oliver Foundation. This is the most amazing charity, and this lady is a lone voice in a sea of complete cover-ups. And you know I have to rush, but love you. And I'm going to go online later and do some sport. I think you're amazing.
Thank you. If anybody wants to come to the High Court tomorrow, please come.
Get your banner and get there for Mags.